Darrell, squad-wise, if you could, first of all, I think Ollie Russell came back into the squad and he's gone on loan to Salford. What's your thinking behind that?
Yeah, well, it's just getting him playing, really. I think, 'cause he's sort of, me and him had a chat the other day. He's had sort of such a long time where he hadn't played. He didn't really play that much at Huddersfield last year, and then he broke his hand here. So it's just getting playing. He's just come back from that. Just needs game time, needs to get himself going again. And yeah, that's the rationale. And he wants to play. We want him to play, and we've. We well, even though we are a little bit skinny this week, we're looking like we're going to be stronger over the next few weeks, and so it just made sense.
Do you ever, he'll play against, I think it's Castleford and Leeds. Do you ever look at the opposition when you send a player out on loan, or is it all just about the game time?
Yeah, not really. No, I think particularly at Super League level, you wouldn't look too much. Sometimes in the champ, you might look and see whether it's right for them. Particularly, playing against stiff opposition depends where they are. But I have done that in the past where I've looked at opposition. I think they'll be really good, challenging games for a player. But no, at Super League level, I think it was a good fit for Ollie and Salford at this point, and that's what we've gone with. Which it's good for him to get back playing, and obviously Salford are in need of a halfback, having lost Danny Richardson back to OKR. So yeah, it was a good fit.
What's the skinniness down to this week then?
Well, it's the same stuff, really. I think we're not too dissimilar to what we had last week, but it just is what it is. I mean, we get a couple of middle boys back last week, which has really helped us. Thought they were outstanding. The players coming back into the team. And then next couple of weeks with potential. True, I think we'll be back next week. And then we've got a couple more in there. Renew from Matty Staunton. So and then Kai Rodwell a little bit further down the track. So we're starting to see some players coming back, and I think it keeps us fresh. Players coming back in who are hungry to play. So probably it'll be a tough team to pick this week, but I think down the track it potentially will be. I'm hoping it will be anyway.
I'm just thinking with all those players coming back, how on earth are you going to pick that starting 13? What will you base that on? Have you given it any thought right now? Because you will be aware of when players will start to slot back in.
Yeah, well, just got to make decisions based around who we're playing, who fits, getting everybody tuned in. And that it needs to be the right balance in the team. Obviously, there's a call to be made down the track on a couple of players. There always is, but at the moment, I just think whoever's slotting in different positions. Matt's gone to half, just right to fullback. Harvey's started and been great. It's so yeah, just really pleased with how the boys are handling, sort of moving around positionally, and then coming into the team like we had. Mikey came back in as a really experienced player. Caleb came back in last week and played really well. Doyley came back in last week and played really well. So that's pleasing that, well, there's a couple of things that that your physio and your conditioning team are doing a good job because they're coming back in and straight into the firing line and handling it pretty well. So yeah, I'm just really, really happy with where we're at and what we're doing. Confident we can take the challenges on that are ahead of us, and we know this is a stiff one this week, but I think we're ready for it.
Just give us your thoughts on Josh Rourke's new deal, which was announced this week, because he had an option for next year, but you've actually surpassed that and given him an extra 2 years on top of that. What do you see that as one that he's just earned himself?
Yeah, well, we decided that before this week. This deal's been agreed a few weeks now. Just, I think he's come in. And even, he's been pretty much part-time most of his career. So even at London, there weren't a genuine sort of full-time team. And I just think he's just learning all the time. He's really coachable. He works hard. He's got some real skill sets in his game that are sort of unique-ish. I mentioned it after the game last week. He's fully deserved it. I'd like to see him, potentially be able to play centre wing to open up his options of getting in the team. Obviously, what he's doing at the moment is pushing Max to, when they're both available at full back. And that's awesome because that just creates healthy competition for places where Max has to strive again and get better. And I feel like that's what's happening within our group at the moment. I feel like players are getting better, and our confidence as a team is just growing week on week. Even in stressful situations where we've lost games, I just feel like we're gaining confidence. And yeah, just really pleased where we're at. And Rocky's been a part of that, particularly when we lose Truey and we're having to adjust a little bit. Ollie Russell wasn't available. And then Max playing at half and Rocky coming in and doing what he did last week. That was an outstanding performance for him last week.
Since we last spoke, the Jazz Tevaga deal has been confirmed. What's he going to bring to you from next year?
Oh, he's a good player. I mean, when I first I've watched him play a fair bit over the years, but I was watching him play at Manly and how good his energy is, and his quick rooks are fantastic. We do a lot of work on all sorts of angles from a recruitment perspective, and all of those things, whether it's people giving us testimonies, whether it's on the eye, you watch him play, you look at all the data, and he's just a high quality player who we think is going to fit perfectly into the group, not only as a player but as a leader and as a bloke. So. Um, yeah, he's come across really well when we've had Zoom meetings with him, and yeah, perfect. I think he's a perfect fit for us. And he's one of those players. I think it's really important when you get players from Australia is that they're of an age that they've still got upside in them, and I think he's at that perfect age.
What about Thursday's game? Then you had that narrow defeat to Hull early in the season. Are they one of those sides that you've been waiting to get a second shot at?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've had a few of those, or we will have a few of those coming up. The Hull's the first really where it was a tight game. There was nothing in it. We were offside for a couple of tries that we scored from kicks. Like I say, it was a really tight game, and they were playing exceptionally well at the time. I feel like they had a great start to the season. And they're still the same grittiness and toughness and difficult to break down. um, but yeah, they're a team that we want to. We're competing with pretty hard for the top six, and it's an important game. I think like last week, I thought it was a crucial game for both clubs, Catalan and ourselves, and I think this is another one, in that sort of bracket.
Just lastly for me, Daryl, you've obviously had a long past association with Cass and a long past association with Danny McGuire. What were your thoughts when you heard about his departure at the start of this week?
Well, look, it's tough for the young British coach who's getting his first crack as a head coach. I texted him yesterday and got a voice note back from Danny. It's disappointing, isn't it? It's tough. Obviously, clubs make their own decisions. I think we've got to make sure that we support coaches and give them a route back. And I know Danny's is really positive about what's happened to him. Not what's happened to him, but what he's going to do coming back. So yeah, I think it's really important that we don't lose people of Danny's caliber to coaching, because it can be a pretty tough initiation, when things don't go your way. So we need to support coaches like that, I think. And how we do that, I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but I think it's important that we do.
Just on Hull, they've gone almost a year now without winning at home. Can you play on that as a visiting side? Because it's bound to be in the mind somewhere.
Well, if it is, it is. I don't think that's for us. It's for us to play well and put them under pressure and make life difficult for them. I don't. We had that same situation early on in the year, and yeah, it can be sort of it can take over you a little bit. For us, it's not for us, is it? I just think we've just got to play our game and be ourselves. I think we've got a real high quality team here who are doing a lot of really good things. So just keep doing that. I don't think that really matters to us. I just think it's for us to go and play as well as we can and put Hull under extreme pressure.
Yeah, I think the table's starting to take shape now, isn't it? And it might look to some people like it's three clubs going for one spot, that sixth spot. But given your new mentality at the club, there, are you looking up rather than down?
Yeah. We're just concentrating on ourselves. I don't think looking either way is gonna help the players. They've just got to get on with what they're doing. That's for coaching staff really. And I think we're just happy where we're at. Not happy completely because we think we can get better. But I think we're competitive every week, and we're growing and getting better in some areas. I think it's a decent challenge this week, because Hull, but they're losing games here or there, but I think they've got a similar record to us over the last 6 games. It's they're always in battles, and they're very difficult to break down. The scramble super hard for each other, and then a lot of tackles on their own line last week, and they keep turning up for each other. So we're not taking anything for granted. I don't think that's for us. For us, is just be on our game, be on our game every week, and if that's the case, then we know how difficult a challenge we are for the opposition.
How big of an achievement would it be if you managed to keep hold of this top six spot and finish and got into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great effort. But we've got a good squad, we've got a good squad and we've got a deep squad. I think, I reckon we come into the year and maybe even now because some of our players haven't played that much. But we've got players who are either underrated or aren't really known in Super League, and I think, yeah, I think we've got a good squad, but I don't think everybody knows quite how good yet. And I think, hopefully, I'm hoping that over time that's going to become pretty apparent.
Just a quick one from me. Overseas quota going up to 10. I imagine Wakefield are firmly behind that. Just wondered what your thoughts on it were, and is it good for the English game? Will it stop young English kids coming through?
I don't think everybody's. I saw Matty Pete made some comments on it, and I get it. I understand it. I think we've got to continue to strive to develop young English players. I think that's important, massively important. At the same time, we're potentially expanding the competition over here. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I think the depth of English talent is not quite where you would want it to be for that to happen. So, to keep the quality, then I think this is probably a decent move. But I do think that we have to be mindful of making sure that we're a development club as well. That's really important to us. And we're working on all fronts to make sure that our development is where it needs to be. So look, I'm massively in favour of developing young British talent, but also recognise that we want the depth in the game over here to make sure that the quality is where it needs to be. So we can, we make sure that we get an OTV deal for example. It's those sorts of things. So there's wider things at play, but young British talent is really important to us as a club.
Are you looking at more overseas editions for next year? Are there likely to be a few more announcements?
Yeah, potentially. I think we're discussing that, and we'll make some decisions over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, look, I think most clubs will be sort of looking at what they're doing and what's available and what can you do to strengthen your squad.
Is it sort of a real statement of intent if you go to Hull tomorrow night and get that win? Given the shape of the table and the fact there's 10 rounds left.
Oh yeah, I think for us, we see that all the time. We want to go and make a mark on the competition, and going away to Hull is a tough place to go. It's it's always difficult. They're sort of different beasts this year. Obviously, we've seen that. They've had a really strong season so far. So for us, yeah, going away to places like Hull and getting the result if we can, then it's another tick in the box for us. But we know what we've got to do to make that happen. It's certainly not going to be easy going there.
Do you think playing like first game of the weekend has any bearing on, because if you win, you can go and put extra pressure on those that are chasing the pack, for example. Do you think that has any bearing on playing Thursday night?
Not really. I don't worry about that too much, to be honest. It's short turnaround for us. No, I don't think so. For us, just do our job, look after ourselves. Don't worry about up or down, anything else really. Is just keep playing well.
You mentioned Jake Truman's expected to be back next week. Obviously, we know the concussion issues that he's had, but is everything else all right with him now? Because obviously he had a bit of a wild ride with his back, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he's fine. No, he's trained well this week. He's had a great week, really worked hard. Spoke to him this morning, face to face. He's in a great place. He's had a good week, and he'll be ready to go next week.
And just last thing, I think your sort of social media guys have teased a bit more good news tonight that's being released. Can you shed any light on that, or is it wait and see?
No, I'll leave it to those guys. You know, I think that was I've already mentioned Josh Rout. It was a great piece of news. Re-signing Josh, and I'll leave it to our media guys. They're pretty good at what they do.